FromSoft games have a sense of humor to them, and I get it now. Now that I'm looking for it, I'm like, this is so funny. We're just being trolled constantly. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Quest Markers. On this segment of our show, we talk about the intersection of video games and our disciplines in the gaming industry. My name is Marina. I'm a video game composer, vocalist, audio engineer, and your host. And today we are back with the Soul Squad, Sherveen and Jack. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to have you back on the show. This is the first time that we're doing a video episode together. And for anyone watching the VOD, this episode will be timestamped, so feel free to jump around based off of if we end up talking about a game for a lengthy amount of time that you haven't played or something like that to avoid spoilers. And again, if you're in Twitch chat, we do have emote-only chat turned on to help us focus, but we'll turn it on at the end. But friends, let's get into it. How are you staying hydrated?
I've got my big cauldron of tea just ready on standby and a little glass of water to like cleanse the soul afterwards.
I love that.
I'm drinking a hot chocolate.
Oh,
I've been drinking this whole time without.
I love that. Wait, this isn't the first time. This isn't the first time that you've had hot chocolate on the show.
Like, maybe not. Maybe I am predictable.
I love it. No, I love it.
That's so cozy.
Yeah, that is very cozy.
Well, you just get the little packets and then they're just there.
That is true.
You want them.
Hot chocolate's delicious.
Yes. Oh,
I love it. I am also dual wielding, as Blue said in the last episode. I have coffee. I have water this time. Like genuinely, actually have water. So I'm really proud. I'm really, really proud.
Staying hydrated.
I probably won't be drinking it very much. I'll be drinking the coffee. That's okay. It's fine. Let's do intros first. Who would like to start?
Go. Hi everyone, I'm Sherveen. I am an indie developer. I do a lot of freelance game dev as well. And Marina and I also used to work together. I'm working on a game called Mid-Autumn, which is like a roguelite, like dungeon crawler. And I also do a lot of like odd jobs and stuff as a freelancer. Yeah, that's me.
And
Jack.
I'm Jack. I'm a writer and games journalist. I previously wrote for GG Recon, RIP, because they were wonderful. And so now I'm kind of just nomadic, kind of doing my own little thing and writing what I can when I can.
Love it. Love it. Sherveen, I've played Mid-Autumn. You know that. Jack, I am re-speccing in Elden Ring, and I was like, Jack has a guide on a St. Trina Sleepy EP build, so I think I'm going to do that.
That's a fun build. That's a fun build.
It's so good.
Because Sleep used to be like really hard to do in the base game, and then they were like, oh, finally, there's a sleep sword that's like good.
Yeah,
Sleepy EP sword.
So much fun. I that's what I've been doing lately. I've been like kind of dipping back into Elden Ring a bit and doing some PvP and stuff. So I respect Flower Boy into the EP Sleepy build for a bit.
I love it.
Marina, you should do the sword and the torch. I feel like you can
is there
do
a torch?
them, right? The torch is in the base game. It's like a purple torch.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm into that.
It's very cool.
Actually, speaking of, Jack, you said Flower Boy. The names in parentheses are our tarnished names. Look, we are the Soul Squad. Our little messaging group is just called Soul Squad.
Yeah.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it is. Hello, welcome in. What is everyone playing right now? I've been dying to have this conversation because I just have stories that I have not been wanting to tell you until the show. But I will let you go first.
I started checking out Avowed this week, right? It came out. Did it come out this week or last week? I can't remember. But
I don't remember.
I have been enjoying it. I think it's the Pillars of Eternity setting, and it's not. I don't know if anyone's played Tyranny by Obsidian. That is always like my more like partial setting for their like RPGs, but they have it like they've made like a bunch of Pillars of Eternity sequels, and like Tyranny was just like a small like weird game that they did. So That's my one thing is I'm like not as into the Pillars of Eternity setting. It's great. Like all the characters are great. There's a Garrus is in it. I don't know if you guys know that, but like is it Brandon Keener who does Garrus's voice acting is like the first companion you get, and it just sounds like Garrus the whole time. Garrus from Mass Effect, in case anyone's not, in case that's
Oh. I've always been a PlayStation boy, so I've never like had an Xbox. So I've never
I
played
did need to say Garrus from Mass Effect, otherwise it wasn't. But that was my big. Like someone said that, I was like, oh, I'll play it. I'll play it. I want to see.
Nice.
There's not that many like. It's a fun voice. It's like he's got like a growly voice that's like, not like a lot of other voice actors, in my opinion.
We love like a growly, menacing voice actor.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I have so much respect for what voice actors do. Like the amount of like I can just imagine being in a booth for an extended period of time and having to be in character and not only read but act out that many lines. Yeah. Love it.
I like the idea of the guy who did Egon in Elden Ring. Just like he can't get out of like the voice after he's like recorded his lines, so he like goes home to his family, and they're like, "Have you had a good day?" And he's like, "It was wonderful," just like screaming.
Curse you, Bale.
That's like what I do when I stub my toe now.
Yeah, 100%. You gotta curse. It's Bale's fault. Sherveen, I feel like everyone's playing VAD except me.
Yeah, I mean, it's on Game Pass, is why it's like a really easy to pick up thing. But I've been playing that. I've been playing Citizen Sleeper 2. That's also I've been playing just slowly. That's also very fun, just really fun writing. The thing I like about Citizen Sleeper is like every character is kind of like rude to you, like a little bit. I don't know if that's like a thing, but it's like it's because you're like a robot, essentially, like a sleeper is like a robot in the setting, and you're kind of like a marginalized group in the setting, and everyone's like like everyone's constantly like microaggressioning you. And so it's very fun, but there's always like, I don't like how this character is talking to me, even though they're supposed to be my ally.
I need to play that. I really need to. Sherveen, you told me about it. I think a couple of years ago now. Well, the first one.
Yeah, the first one. It's just dice rolls. It's like very like it's like dice rolls, RPG. I think it's kind of visual novel-y, but I don't think the dev who makes it, Gareth, I don't think he actually thinks of it as a visual novel. He's like, it's an RPG. So, is Gareth? I can't remember. But yeah, so it's like it's really fun in terms of the scope. It like does a lot with just text and sound effects and dice and like not that much. And it's like really, very engaging.
I gotta get to that. Jack, what are you playing?
Well, I actually, funnily enough, I picked up Citizen Sleeper 2 today, so I've not started it. Yeah, weirdly.
Nice.
So I've not started it, but I'm so excited because I loved, like I say, I loved the first one. It was kind of one of my kind of play on the train sort of games on the way home sort of thing. But lately, alongside Elden Ring, just dipping in and out, I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy Rebirth, 7 Rebirth, because I really want to just do everything in there. I don't know if I'll try. I mean, I want to try and platinum it, but I don't know if I've got the strength because there's so much. But every time I forget how much there is to do in it because there's so many side quests. Just when you think like, oh, that'll do, like everything's probably done in this area, like 5 more things will pop up, and I'm like, I get to stay here for longer. I get to ride the chocobos. I get to play Queen's Blood.
Are you a Queen's Blood fan?
I love Queen's Blood. If I could have, I don't think I'd want a Queen's Blood game.
Hard disagree.
I think they try.
Sorry.
I think I'd want like a physical one though. I would love to like have some physical like Queen's Blood cards and just like play it, throw in some like little counters in there as well. Oh, I'd love it. because I think they tried to do a. I might be wrong, so forgive me if I'm spreading misinformation, but I think they tried to do a Gwent game after like it got big in The Witcher, and I don't know if
I
it kind
think
of
there is a Gwent game.
yeah, and I
Oh.
don't know if it kind of hit the same. I don't think it hit what they were hoping it would. So that's why I'm a bit wary of having like a Queen's Blood game when I'm like, just give me the cards. I will build decks all day long.
I'll tell you what I would want in a Gwent game or a Queen's Blade game is exactly it's The Witcher. It's as big as The Witcher, and you're walking all the space. It's just everyone there just wants to play cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what no one ever makes that. They're always like, oh, we'll put that in like another game, but it's just like an entire like Oblivion sized. You're walking around, and the whole point is I got to be the best at cards. Like that would be the perfect like Yu-Gi-Oh game, right?
I was
Because
gonna say, yeah,
it would be like
100%.
what else would they be doing? They're walking around trying to be the best at the card game.
100%. I would play that.
So good.
That's how I played Rebirth, though. I would get into a new town. I'm like, main quest. I already know what happens. I played the original game, Queen's Blood.
I know. As soon as they would pop up, I'm like, I know where I'm going.
Absolutely.
I'm like, Chadley, you can wait. Give me a minute. Give me some space, Chadley. I need to play some Queen's Blood right now. You have no idea, Chadley.
You don't
please.
understand.
But do you know what? I love Chadley. I think Chadley's great at that. I'm going on record saying that. And yeah, it's just so much fun, kind of even just wandering around, just being with those characters as well. I know obviously they're very enduring characters. They have been since the PS1, but they just do such a great job in nailing the voices, the mannerisms. It feels like when I don't know, it's yeah, they just hit it out of the park with how they built up the characters. I don't want them to go.
Agreed. Yeah, so good. Also, hello, welcome in. We'll open up chat at the end. Jack, are you playing anything else?
That's pretty much it at the moment. I'm just having a look at my shelf to remember what I have got on there at the moment. Yeah, other than that, it's just kind of dipping in and out of Elden Ring and my usual like Dead by Daylight quota as well.
Nice.
I've got to feed the addictions as well, you know.
Of course. Why not? My main game right now is that I'm like playing by myself. Sorry, that was a weird way of saying it. Is Pacific Drive, which I'm loving. I say that because I'm streaming Dark Souls 1. So my main game right now is Pacific Drive. I'm really, really enjoying it. It is so charming. There is something about the writing of that game, the environments. It strikes this incredible balance that I think is really hard to strike because it's mystery and horror and loneliness, but also connection and humor and just charm and wit. And there's something really, really special about Pacific Drive. So if anyone hasn't checked it out, I would recommend it.
Yeah, that's on my list for sure. It looks really cool.
Yeah,
I like the car.
Yeah,
like dashboard looks really cool.
Yeah, you can customize the car. Like it's so great. It's so great. I won't. Do you know like generally what the premise is? What the main mechanic is? I won't spoil it if not.
It's Stalker, but you're driving and it's Washington. Is what it looks.
People have said that, but I haven't played Stalker, so I don't know. But it's very roguelike. And so before every run, I just chant car before it like sends me into the run. Anyway, it's great.
Honking the horn, like yes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, 100%. Just beep beep. But I'm streaming Dark Souls 1, which has been very fun. I think now I understand. I think we spoke about this actually the very first time that you were both on the show. Is that FromSoft games have a sense of humor to them, and I get it now. Now that I'm looking for it, I'm like, this is so funny. We're just being trolled constantly by FromSoft, and it's so funny. I think it's hilarious. like the level design is also incredible and how interconnected everything is. I'm just having a really, really good time in Dark Souls 1. And similar to Jack, I am also playing Elden Ring. I hop on, this is what I've been wanting to talk about. I hop on hop on Elden Ring for like I'm trying to get better at actually taking lunch breaks. But I'll like take a lunch break. I'll turn on my is it the golden effigy that you use to tell people, hey, I'm available for co-op? And I'll just get sent into people's worlds. And I've had like 3 really funny scenarios. The first one was in Shadow of the Erdtree. Well, Onion Ring, my tarnished, is just everyone's bodyguard because I'm like level a gazillion and I'm still not on New Game Plus. This is all an accident.
That makes a big, that's great.
She just gets strong by accident. But yeah, so I've really enjoyed just like helping people who are new to the game, who are maybe in an early area. That is just so fun and so wholesome. But there was one where we were in St. Trina's Cave in the DLC where the other person was called Very Cheese or Very Cheesy or something like that. It was so funny. And we're going through the cave and there's all the like birds in there and like missiles. And then we got invaded. And Very Cheesy and I were on the same wavelength. We immediately put on our mimic veil and became rocks.
Okay.
I was like, Very Cheesy knows. But then a hunter came in, started fighting the invader. And then we took our mimic veils off, but I struggled. I like accidentally put it back on twice. So that was very funny. And then I had a situation where
sorry, I just like the idea of Onion Ring, like take it off and then go, no.
I didn't realize you have to roll out of it. I kept like, anyway. The second situation was right before the final boss of the base game, whom I won't spoil. Hopped in and everyone was running around in circles, and then someone put a mimic veil on and became like a bush tree and started running around in circles. So we all did. I just have some very funny clips. But last night we were in Midra's Manse in the DLC, me and a new player, and I was like, oh, this is good. This is like a great dungeon. We got invaded, but the invader was helping us navigate, which was so nice. So like they kept putting their guard up, which looks really funny in game because you kind of like put your sword up as though you're guarding, but you do it really quickly. And then I did too. And we are like, oh, okay, they're friendly. And they were helping us. And then a hunter came in and we were all like just running around literally in circles on the spot to be like, yeah, we're friendly because you can't talk in game. And then eventually we got to a site of grace. And the person who summoned us couldn't touch the site of grace because we had an invader. And it was so sad. And the invader and I just looked at each other and they like bowed and I bowed. And then we had to duel. But because I respect and I wasn't using the weapon that I normally use, which is Eleanor's pole blade, I did fall, unfortunately. But it was so fun. It was just so fun. I've had a great time.
You know, that's a good one to help someone out on because it's got all the like the hidden walls and everything, and it's really easy to like not know where to go in that particular one. And it's got the switches, like the switches are like hard to find.
Oh god, yeah. Oh, that's so gutting though. That's so heartbreaking.
It was very fun. It was very fun though.
Why is it always sadness?
It's always sadness. I don't know.
It's always sadness.
I don't know. It's always sad. I don't know. It was very fun. It was very wholesome. I think people are really excited about Night Rain. So
I am excited about Night Rain. It sounds like Fortnite, but it's Elden Ring. And I was like, all right, I'm into it because that's really what is stopping me from playing Fortnite is the fact that it's not Elden Ring, probably.
Of course. What else?
Honestly, that's such a thing. Like I will be playing, even when I play Rebirth, which is incredible. I'm like, you're not Elden Ring though, are you? You know? I'm like,
I do wish we all got little horses in Night Rain. I found out there's no horses, and I was like, it's fine. You just run really fast.
I'm sad. I love Torrent. Shall we get into it?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I'd love to start by talking about what game or games inspired you to eventually work in gaming.
I'll hop in. I think for me, the biggest one I'd say is probably Bloodborne, because it was one of those games that it was one of the first games that I'd specifically bought a console for. that I knew I was going to be. I'd seen obviously a lot of footage of it, a lot of trailers for it, and I knew it was kind of going to be well up my street after Dark Souls, which is so different from Bloodborne in every way. But I knew it was going to be my cup of tea straight away. So I was at university at the time, and I thought, you know, my birthday was coming up, and my dad very kindly was like, "We'll, you know, chip in to pay for the PlayStation," sort of thing. So, and because he knew I was excited, I was for it. And it was around the time that my housemates and I we'd been playing Dark Souls on my friend's PS3, and it was this PS3 was slowly but surely dying on us. It was like the controller was like randomly hitting NPCs and locking us out of like quests and stuff. I've mentioned this so many times, but it was so funny. We were like hitting merchants and they'd be like running away from us and like locking us out of all sorts. So when I got the PlayStation, it kind of went straight into the living room, and we were playing Bloodborne with all my kind of uni friends. But so that was like the first time where I thought about how the writing in the video game could properly affect how we perceive it. Because even though it's very environmental, it's very visual, what we're kind of trying to glean from it, I knew I wanted to be able to write about it constantly. I thought I could fixate on this for ages and just write about it. And then cut to a few years later, when I was doing my my master's, I got a part-time job at a video game shop, a UK kind of video game retailer, and I was there for a good few years. And I knew I wanted to leave, but COVID kind of scuppered a lot of plans in that sort of respect. But when I knew that I wanted a career in writing, that's always been kind of the dream. But I always thought that, what if I combine these two things that I loved? So at the minute, I'm working in a video game shop and I love video games, and I'm also a writer and I love to write. So that's kind of where like the games journalist kind of thing came from. And then eventually a few things land, and you know, more games come out that I think I could write about this daily. And now I've got a load of Elden Ring guides and Street Fighter guides and Dragon's Dogma guides, you know, in the backlog.
Yes.
But they were the main ones. And like I think kind of going back as well to like even earlier at university, for years I was a handheld gamer, like exclusively. So I was always playing on my 3DS and stuff, and that was my first real experience with Majora's Mask on the 3DS. So again, kind of looking at how it's written and kind of the themes that it deals with, which are it's immediately darker than like Ocarina of Time, which is dark, but Majora's Mask kind of like hit it out of the park. And then similarly, it was things like Kid Icarus on the 3DS as well, where the writing is just kind of so tightly written, and you've got these incredible characters. And I just thought, there's something in this.
Well, and Jack, you ended up doing a lot of guides for Tears of the Kingdom, right? When it came out?
Yeah. That was such a good time when that came out, because we knew it was going to be big. And when we were all kind of working on it together, it was a really great way to kind of collaborate, because we'd all be at different points, but because the game was so big, it gave us the opportunity to really, one person could be in one place and another person could be in a completely different region and way ahead, but you wouldn't be spoiling anything, because it was just that like that expansive that you just almost couldn't. But it really gave us an opportunity to kind of collaborate, share images that we were working on, to kind of get a really good kind of output of guides and other content out there as well. Yeah, Tears of the Kingdom was fantastic, and that was my first kind of big game at GG Recon. It wasn't long before, like after I'd started, that came out, so it was kind of jumping straight into the deep end, you know, with that. And what a game to do that for.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I can't like, I never thought about the idea of like playing like a big game like that analytically, but like collaboratively as like a team. which I realize like it must happen for like a lot of the big games, but like specifically Tears of the Kingdom is such a cool way to go about like making guides with everyone and like adding to it.
Yeah, it really was. It was such a wholesome time because it was a game that we all just universally loved. I don't think there was anybody that wasn't excited for it. So we knew that we could just dive in together. It's great.
Love that. I didn't. Yeah, to Sherveen's point, I can't imagine what a collaborative effort. How would you even figure out who would cover what in the game?
We always did so well in organizing our kind of output, who would cover what. We'd put our names by different topics and stuff like that. We'd suggest things. I worked with some fantastic writers and editors who were always open to kind of looking beyond the algorithms and stuff to see what we could write, not only for hitting what Google would like and what search engines would like, but also what we would like and what we would have fun writing about as well. So it was always it was always really well organized like that.
I love that. Sherveen, what about you? What standout games inspired you?
Yeah. So like I used to, because I grew up in Vietnam, so we all had like pirated like copies of like Xbox and PlayStation and everything. So games were like $1. So it was like really easy to get a lot of games. So I used to have like, I remember like I had a drawer of like just the CDs, like not the cases, because there were so many of them, and I would just like rummage through sometimes. But I actually think I have like an opposite example, because does anyone know like Alfred Chicken? It's like an old like UK like platformer from like for the Amiga or something.
I just Googled it and I don't recognize
I had it for the PlayStation. Yeah, it's a really.
It looks like something I would have loved growing up, though.
So I hated that game so much.
No!
So
the key art is so cute.
I was how old would I have been like when? Because it's like 2000. I mean, I would have been. I probably wasn't. Oh, 2002. I would have been like 7 playing this game. And it was the first time that like I like looked at it. I was like, it has like the images and stuff on the like, you're buying the game and you're like, oh, this looks great. I played it and I was like, I don't like it. And I have no actual shade to the game. I'm sure lots of people liked it, but I like felt cheated. but I just wanted to point it out because I was like, I remember complaining, but I was like, I don't like this game. And he was like, you gotta not just buy games based on like the pictures. You gotta like read a review or something. That was like the first time I was like, oh, I should be like looking at games more critically. It's like, I guess like, so
at the young age of 7.
Like maybe it was 7. I mean,
Sherveen became a game dev at 7.
But that's when I started.
It here first.
I mean, in my mind, it's middle school. So, but that's when Alfred Chicken. It says Alfred Chicken came out 2002. So, but that's when I started kind of like reading. I feel like middle school is when I started like reading a lot of like GameSpot, like IGN, Polygon stuff. And I think I started doing that so much that I was like, I should start like. I'm spending too much time on this. I should make this like a productive thing that I'm doing instead of just being a gamer.
It's okay to also just enjoy things, though.
It's okay to just enjoy things, but I come from like the type of culture where it's like you have to justify things, and I had the like idea of like, you know what, if this is my career, I'm suddenly not procrastinating on all of these things. Suddenly I'm like a real go-getter, and I've like been researching for like a really long time. And I think that was like a big, like, I feel like if I hadn't played that game and had a really terrible time with it, I might not have been. The other game, like, there's like a lot of like, I feel like early mid 2000s games. I feel like Mass Effect was like one of the first games I really played, like thinking about games as like things that are made by people and like what sorts of decisions are being made. I remember because I didn't finish it in one go. I like played maybe like 75% of it, and you had like the natural thing where you like don't finish it. And then I was like on like break. I had like a week of break from school, and I was like, I'll try and finish Mass Effect. And I loved it. I like loved it so much because so I was like, oh, it's just really interesting to think like games that you really love you can like drop a lot of games in the middle sometimes. And that's also like today, like such a design challenge is like even if you nail the ending, even if you nail the like first opening hours of your game, if that middle drags a little bit, which is the easiest place for your game to drag as well, it's like so many people will just put it down, and like statistically most people will put your game down somewhere in the middle. So that was a big thing. I remember really thinking of Gears of War as well. I don't know, that's maybe a weird one, but that was one that I played with a lot of like friends. So we like played through the whole campaign like 3 times, like on each difficulty. So like, yeah, so it was like really got to see the whole campaign with people. Yeah, so I feel like a lot of my like I'm like a real like 2000s gamer like culture person in terms of getting inspired for games.
I love that. Follow-up question, because I will forget before. I feel like we have at least one game in common, Jack, you and I, that inspired us. But question for you, Sherveen, when you think about pacing in a game, because you have your own studio, you're working on a title right now, how do you think about pacing in general? Let's say you're like, I love the beginning, I love what we have here, I love the ending, I love what we have. And I've heard of some people, and maybe Jack, you can chime in here, feel free, that when they storyboard a narrative, they think about where is it leading to, we know what the ending is, and so what are like the key beats that are going to keep people engaged. But how do you think about that? Because there are so many games released every single day now on Steam. And as someone who is creating games, you want people to play your game all the way through. So how do you think about pacing? And you seem to be very acutely aware of it, so I'm curious.
No, I mean that's a really interesting question. I do think about it a lot. It is a thing that I think a lot of devs think about, especially when you're in a more of like a top-down perspective on a game, and you're not necessarily like focused on a specific level or something like that. You're looking at the whole thing. I think there is like a similar thing with writing, where it is you're thinking about where you're trying to get to and what needs to happen in order to set up that moment. So it's like, okay, we're gonna have this big emotional climax here. In order for that to be emotional, this has to happen, and all of those moments need to work, and you kind of test that. But you can't quite do that with games, because games are so large that you kind of don't, and like you can't do it like a Netflix limited series where you like write the whole thing and you know exactly what's going to happen and then you make the game. You have to kind of start making it before you know exactly how everything plays out, or else it just takes way too long. So that's like, there's a lot of discovery in that, of like, oh, okay, maybe it can be like this. I thought it was going to be like this, it's going to be like this. But I think the way I actually think about it is in terms of milestones. This is me personally. I don't know if what other devs do, but I think of it in terms of like when I'm making a demo, I'm like, I want to make a game that is fun for 15 minutes. And then when I'm testing it or when I'm seeing people play it, it's like, yeah, they're having fun for 15 minutes. And then at the 15-minute mark, I can see them go, that's enough. And then they stop and they like do something else. And then the next milestone is like, okay, now it's like an hour. It's engaging for an hour. And they're like, okay, and they're having fun. And you can really see it. You can really see them be like, and they've run out of the things that are like keeping them hooked and they stop. And so I when I'm working on a project, I know like it's in this stage. Like this is a game that like people will play for 2 hours, 3 hours, or something like that, and then they're at a stopping point. And then the next thing is either it's you keep extending it or you figure out a way to like get them to come back because they'll put the game down and then the next day. But you can time it, right? Like that's when you're like, oh, it's that 2 hour stopping point. Well, let's put a thing in there. That's how you get that, like, oh, just one more quest, one more side quest. A lot of dev I know are timing it. So they're like, oh, well, right around this time, we'll introduce this like other things. You'll either go, oh, I'll do one more, or you'll go, I'll stop, but I want to come back to that. You kind of just have to do that, like drip feed it all the way to the end. It takes a really long time to like actually test out all that stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like when I come onto a project, it's more about here's the vision, here's kind of what we need, here's how long we're anticipating the player being here. You know, the music has to loop. How do we make sure that it's not too repetitive on the ear? So I don't quite see the like, how are we pacing this, you know, at a higher level when a game is in an inception. Although I love being on projects early, it just gives us more time to like iterate. But for me, Jack, maybe similar to you, Majora's Mask was really, really big growing up, like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. And I specifically like music is such a key mechanic in both of those games, which I thought was really cool. And I still do. But yeah, I loved Zelda growing up. And then I played Final Fantasy 13. I wouldn't say shortly after that. I guess that came out a few years later. But I remember the music in FF13 being so beautiful, and I still listen to it to this day. And yeah, I feel like it's so cool now seeing video game concerts be a thing where it's like, oh yeah, that's so awesome. Like I recently went to a Final Fantasy concert and it was amazing. And it was just medleys. Yeah, it was just awesome. Just really awesome. But yeah, definitely like early Zelda for me, and then FF13. Now FF14, but I won't if I start talking about FF14. We're gonna be here all day.
Automata.
Yeah, I mean I played Nier Automata way later though. If I would have loved Nier as a kid. And as a teenager, I know
that would be crazy to be like a kid and like just being introduced to those themes at young age.
Oh my, can you imagine? Look, I was already crying every 30 minutes.
What does it mean to be human? Like,
what does it mean? Am I a choice?
Exactly. Yeah, I would have eaten that up as a kid. I would have. I know that I would have had like journals and journals of like me thinking about that game. Yeah, which I did actually. Like I wrote a lot of notes when I was playing it. I wasn't a kid when I played it, but yeah, obviously like now if we talk about recent games, yeah, I mean Nier Automata, one of the best soundtracks ever, just unbelievable. I was listening to it earlier today during my workout. Yeah, just unbelievable. FF14, unbelievable music. But yeah, early influences definitely Zelda and FF13.
I think it's interesting because like you talk about it in terms of music, which is obvious because of what you ended up doing. But like I think that's really like so different from how I perceive the games that are like inspiring, because the games that I think like are really impactful from a musical sense are not the ones that I like think of as like the big inspirational games.
Interesting. Me, right? What's like, that for you then?
Like musical things?
Yeah.
Castlevania. I love those.
Yeah.
I feel like it's all like when I think about the big like musical things that like imprinted on me, it's like early like Castlevania, Mega Man 2, like chiptune-y stuff. That like
I love
got stuck in my head.
I would add Link's Awakening, like the original Link's Awakening to that. Like some of the songs are even better in chiptune than in the remake, in my opinion. But yeah. Jack, what about you? What music and games inspires you? I'm just taking us down this direction selfishly.
The Kingdom Hearts soundtrack.
Ooh.
Oh my god, yes. The opening menu.
I mean, Yoko Shimomura is unbelievable.
And then the menu theme, which is like
Kingdom Hearts 2 was I played Kingdom That's how excited I am for it.
Dearly
I played
beloved.
I played Kingdom Hearts 2 before Kingdom Hearts 1, so obviously it's incredibly convoluted now because they've had a lot of side games and different entries, different characters. But I remember seeing the advert for Kingdom Hearts 2 when I was a kid, and I was like, that looks incredible. I need to play this, and I did. But the music in that is something else, and it was oh god, I can't remember the name of the song, but it's the one that they have in like the opening cutscene where or like the opening cinematic, and it starts off and it's very very melodic, and then it's like very early 2000s like like rock, if that, you know.
Yes.
And it's almost like
the
pop punk,
Kingdom
and
Hearts
it's just
2 one or the Kingdom Hearts 1? The Kingdom Hearts 2
Kingdom
one,
Hearts
right?
2, where it's the that one. I'm not going to sing it because nobody wants to hear that. But the
I don't know the song.
Is it?
Oh gosh,
which one is the Kingdom Hearts 2
Sanctuary.
one?
I think it's called Sanctuary, something like that.
Sanctuary.
Yeah.
Sanctuary is the yeah. Because I was thinking of 352 over 2, but I think it's also
and that's
Kingdom
so
Hearts
good
2.
as well.
It's Yoko
Which I know
Shimomura, right?
said it
She
wrong,
like
right?
did she do
I
the
believe
soundtrack for all
so.
the
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts?
I
I mean,
think
just
all of them.
unbelievable.
That game, playing that as a kid,
Incredible music.
I think
Yeah,
Sanctuary is Utada Hikaru specifically.
I remember
If it's the opening song.
I think chat's excited about Kingdom Hearts music.
I remember playing that when I was a kid, and the scenes, I'll try not to spoil it, but there's scenes in Twilight Town, which is the very first kind of area of the game, and it's kind of like your tutorial thing, and it's very slow. There's not a lot happening. It kind of drips the mechanics in bit by bit, but it's very much a separate part of the game at that point. And I remember the music feeling so sad because it's all about you've got your little group of friends, and summer's coming to an end. You know, you're going to have to go back to school or go back to their lives, and it's very much it feels like a kind of like an awareness of like time's going by. You know, you're not going to be kids forever. You're not always going to be able to go to the den that you've made as a kid forever. And the music does such a good job, and the writing as well. But the music is so sad and it's so calming. But obviously you go on to like the big adventure from there. But yeah, the Kingdom Hearts 2 soundtrack was incredible. I'm so glad you brought that up. I haven't thought about that in so long.
Kingdom Hearts 2, I've only played the first like 3 days of Twilight Town specifically because I played Kingdom Hearts 1. I had a bugged copy of Kingdom Hearts 2 and I couldn't get one that worked. So it would just play up to that point, and you beat the really big nobody like boss, and then it would freeze or crash after that. And I remember specifically just being like, well, I'll just play that part again. So I just played through it repeatedly.
I love that.
So good.
And just wish it would work one day.
Oh no. Today, take the rest of the day off and play it.
I played like the later ones, like Dreamed Up Distance and stuff. I checked out, but
so many people hate the Twilight Town section because it was so different from. I loved it.
You get a job. You're going. You go. The only part I played. You have ice cream.
But it ends in sadness. So
yeah,
I don't know, Jack, from what you've said, the like yearning, but what you described about like, I don't know, friends kind of departing and going their own way. Like it seems like I haven't played Kingdom Hearts, but it seems to me that there is like an inherent sadness to those games. I will say though, I have watched again, never played Kingdom Hearts. I know very little about Kingdom Hearts. I have watched the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer 15 million times because the music in that trailer is so good.
So good. They always put out bangers for their trailers and their opening cinematics. Always. So good.
Like I feel like Kingdom Hearts is about the like pain of growing up, or like very nostalgic. And then also by the end of 3 games, they have like established so much insane convoluted lore.
Yeah.
But it is still like ultimately about
I love that. I love it. I would really love to know. Tell me about some misconceptions about what it's like working in your discipline. And if you need some time to think about it, I can kick us off. But if you have anything in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the biggest misconception, if it's like game dev in general, and especially if you're like the lead of a project in any way, it's like it's so much more emails than people think it is. It's like the more like higher up in a like visibility sense of the game you are at, it's like the more struggle it is to actually sit down and work on a game, not because you don't want to, but because like you have to do everything else that's not like making the game. And so it's always like for example, it'll be like, oh, I want to sit down and work on this feature or this bug, and then it's like, oh, there's a deadline, I have to submit something for this deadline. Oh, and I have to go. So I guess I'm just spending the whole day like editing a little video where I talk about the game, and then like doing an email and being like, is this a good email? And then sending my email out. You do a lot of that. There's a lot of like busy work. And then you like, after doing all that, you then have to work on the game because you also have to you got to make sure it like gets done. So that's like very tough to balance. Actually, I think a lot of people like that's my least favorite part, is all the stuff that's not actually making stuff. Like it would be fun if it wasn't like I have to do it and I don't get to do the other stuff that I was planning to do. So that's probably the biggest thing. I'm trying to think of anything else. There is a lot of like yeah, like, I mean, I don't know about everyone, but like you have to do a lot of like documentation slash like version control stuff is not, I think, an obvious part for folks who don't make games. It's just like keeping track of everything so that the version of you in a year who can't remember anything that they've touched in the game can like detective their way back into like, this is how it works. Because if you don't document any of that, you always regret it. There's like a thing where like, oh, am I documenting things too much? But then in the future, you will always be like, oh, thank God I wrote this down. When I had to like, oh, how do I add a new boss to the game? You'll be like, why isn't this working? And you'll be like, oh, it's because you have to actually, I set it up in a weird way where you have to do it this way, and only I remember how to do it, or something like that. You know, that's horrible. It's like you're just like dealing with the fallout of like a less intelligent version of you who is like, this will be fine.
I wouldn't say that. I think it's that we hold so much in our brains when we're making things that it's, I think, very natural to be like, how do we do this again? But Sherveen, to your point, like the work about the work, like production and communication are so important in every single role. Keeping ourselves organized, making sure we have version control. Like even when I'm writing music, I try to keep my sessions as organized as humanly possible for future me who may need to revert back. Because if I get feedback where it was like, oh, actually, we took out this harp, could we add the harp back in? It's like, I don't want to have to listen to it and rewrite it. I want to just go back to the old version, grab the recording, and then, put the recording into the latest version. So it's so true. And especially if you're socializing something with other people, like having it be documented well, having it be searchable. I agonize over how my emails are or messages are written such that if a new person comes onto the team, will they be able to understand what's going on? Like there is so much work about the work to be done in order to have a team that's cohesive, efficient, that's not frustrated, right? Like I really think about this a lot. Like how do we organize ourselves such that it's easy for newer people on the team to feel like A, they're caught up, but B, that they belong as well and that they don't feel excluded.
No, I mean, that's super. And I was just thinking about like, I spend a lot of time thinking about what I should name something. Like naming conventions is actually a thing. I don't know about everyone on a team. Usually like if you're on it, like if you're working for a studio, you will just have a guideline that you're following or something like that. So you're not thinking about it. But a lot of the time you will have to be like, well, what is this thing that I just made? What do I name it? And the reason that's really tricky is because like I've been the person who's like, oh, final version
We all
for
are.
real, like just adding, right? But you actually
Final,
can't do
final.
that in a lot of games because like changing names or like moving like a file to a different folder can sometimes break things in games, which people, I don't know if people like realize that, but it's just like the way
There's
that
some
we
yas in the
track
chat,
things.
so I think so.
There's some yes. It's like the system we have for tracking things isn't robust enough to like not break if you move things around all the time. It'll like corrupt the meta files sometimes, and it's a nightmare. And like once it's happened, you're like, I never want that to happen again. So there's a lot of times being like spending like 10 minutes or even like maybe more, like thinking like, should this be in this folder or should this be in this folder? Because once I put it here, if I decide it's inconvenient, I'm not going to change it. And there is a lot of times where I'm like, now I just like the amount of times in games where it's like, we had a typo in this one script, and instead of calling it player, it's just plagiar with a G, but now we all have to write plagiar for like 5 years. Like that's what's
Yep. That's real. That's real. Jack, what about you? I feel like some of this surely is transferable and resonates, but what is a misconception about your discipline?
I think particularly when it comes to guides writing, I think there's a huge misconception about how big of a impact guides writing has on the industry as a whole. Because obviously you get your reviews, your feature articles, your interviews with developers and musicians and everybody, but I think that writing guides is kind of a understated part of it. It's very much I always think of it as like a bread and butter kind of sort of side of the industry where they're a great way to get some early things written about the game that you're going to be covering, because it allows you to get into the game, play the game for a bit, and also, obviously you're helping other people out as well. And you kind of, especially pre-release, you have to kind of use your best judgment to decide what's going to be big, what is going to what has given me enough trouble to write a guide for, or if it's not giving me trouble, but I think it could give me trouble, it could give another player trouble. How much of an impact can I kind of make of that, and then link it to other guides that I've already written. So when I think, because as well, as you're the person writing the guides pre-release, you don't have the guides to Google to look up. You're the person who's having to
hard that must be.
I'm having to like make the mistakes, and I'm very much a player that likes to go through things quite methodically, and I'm screenshotting everything. So even if it is just kind of almost like B-roll pictures just to have as like feature images or just something as a placeholder, but if there's a puzzle in the game, obviously Zelda is so full of or Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild are so full of shrines and puzzles, and everything's different. So and Tears of the Kingdom was it really kind of great for it, because there were so many ways that you could solve these shrines. Like you saw people kind of cobbling together platforms that like you might not have thought of initially. Like the quote unquote right way for them isn't necessarily there, but sometimes you just need this is what the problem is, this is how you do it. And I think that kind of having to gauge what will be engaging to the reader is probably like the biggest part of it. I'd say it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that I love. It's something that I think really helps me look at games in a different way, because I'm not only looking at it as myself, but I'm also looking at it as a way of how can I help another player through this. It's almost like the Death Stranding and kind of Elden Ring or that Souls mentality of jolly cooperation, helping other players along, kind of from a separate sort of perspective. But I think that's probably the biggest part. Just guides writing as a whole and its impact on the industry. I think that it's a great
Mm.
way to kind of get an idea of how the industry works and how to kind of judge what a readership is looking for, really.
Mm.
What's it?
Jack,
It's a lot of fun.
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sherveen.
I was
no,
just gonna ask, Jack, do you have like an intuition or like a rule of thumb for when you're deciding what people might get stuck on, even if it's not something that you personally found difficult?
Mm.
Yeah, so when I was doing guides for Alan Wake 2, a great way to look at it as well is like if there's collectibles and stuff like that. So things that
Mhm.
will contribute to the puzzles later on. So in Alan Wake 2, there's a puzzle where you have to find different dolls around the world,
Mhm.
and you have to kind of like put them into different places based on a nursery rhyme that's kind of there giving you the context clues. And sometimes it's not always clear. So I think that uh, kind of judging, if you find it easy, it makes it a lot easier. But I think that there is like that kind of innate sort of, I think someone might find this difficult.
Mhm.
I better write something about it. You just kind of got to wing it. Whether it kind of hits or not is a different thing, but at least it is there for somebody to read at some point. That's the way I see it
Mm.
anyway. And it's a lot easier when you are working in a team, because you can discuss
Mm.
if oh, I found this tricky, oh, I found it quite easy.
Mhm.
You can kind of discuss how you did it, and then there's that again, that kind of feeling of cooperation. When you're on your own, you're kind of just going for it, but and you've kind of got to rely on your best judgment. But then if you're working in a team, it's a great way to kind of collaborate and
Mm.
share information, really.
It's almost like what we always say about Souls games. One person might find a boss really easy, one person might find a boss really difficult. I thought Orphan super easy in Bloodborne. However, Living Failures,
That is
oh
still
my
a very
god, how
funny
much
one.
time was I
That's a
there?
good one.
Yeah.
But it is, everyone's very different. Like
Yeah,
it also depends on your
definitely.
build. Like who knows?
Mm.
Living failures. But yeah, it's just because they're so goofy. Living failures are so
Yeah,
goofy and a little
100%.
tragic and
Yeah,
very goofy.
very tragic, very
Um,
goofy. But I think the common denominator between everything that we're talking about is empathy, right? Like thinking about our
Mm.
teammates, thinking about the player, thinking about the reader.
Mm.
And that like really seems to be the glue on projects that I work on, is like,
Yeah.
how do we think about how to make life easier for the people we work with and the people who might be playing this or reading this. I strongly feel that high empathy leads to
Mm.
better results. And like that's kind of what we've been talking about.
that
Oh, yeah.
actually made me think of like, this is a huge misconception, I think, for a lot of folks who get really interested in making games, is games are group projects. And if you
Oh
hated
yeah.
projects in school, which I did a lot of the time, you're becoming like a person who has to do group projects for like the rest of your life when you make games. So everything that
Yeah.
goes with that, it's like all the same things. It's like sometimes they're really fun. Sometimes there's like interpersonal dynamics. And a lot of making games is like making sure you know how to collaborate creatively in like a healthy way,
Mm-hmm.
and also how to deal with when things are like weird on a project
Yeah.
so
And
that
and
it gets
hard.
done.
Yeah,
Mm.
for sure. Welcome in, welcome in. We will open up chat at the end. Hello, hello. I'm trying to think. Go ahead, Jack, if you have
I
anything
was
else.
going to say, being a solo dev must be, I think, because I think Gareth is a solo dev for Citizen Sleeper, right?
Hmm.
I
I
believe.
think my personal thing, I don't know. I feel like everyone's different, but I feel like solo dev is such a like marketing term
Mm.
because
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, there are maybe like a very, very small number of people who like everything in the games like they have made person. But
Yeah.
like there's so many things that are like even like games adjacent stuff that's just like the marketing and all the different things. It's
Mm.
really hard to like actually be a like a legitimate solo dev.
Yeah.
I don't really think of myself ever as a solo dev. I always think of myself as like part of a team, and then
Mm.
I'm just the
Mm.
one that's like the like decision maker, the big decision maker on things.
Well, you are the studio head, so
yeah. But see, that's the thing. I don't necessarily think of myself as studio head. I always call myself project lead. But the reason for that is really just because a lot of like I know too many people who are like call themselves like studio head and creative director that annoy me personally. And I'm like, I don't want to call myself.
I get it. I understand. Yeah, I definitely get that. I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions about like what composers do. I also do sound design, but I feel like a lot of people, and maybe this is just from like, I remember this is maybe a year ago reading stuff on social media of people being like, oh, I want to compose for media, I want to compose for games, but I don't want people giving me feedback. I just want to be the artist and I just want to like write my music. And I completely disagree with that notion. Like to both of your points, all of our disciplines are so collaborative, and I'm not very precious about, oh, I really want, you know, like this melody to be in here because I think it represents XYZ. Like ultimately, A, it has to work for the vision of the game. B, it has to be it has to work for the player experience at the end of the day. So I always give the example of let's say I was going to give a Nier Automata example, but I'm not going to. Let's say you're playing let's say you're playing an action RPG and you're running around the world and it's kind of this desolate world, and all of a sudden like this percussion kicks in and the music gets really intense and you're like, oh, well, what's going on? Am I in danger? Did I aggro something? And you turn around and nothing's happening. That's complete dissonance between the player and the experience they should be getting, right? Like if there's nothing around you and there's no reason for the music to be changing in that way, then the music was not designed for that scenario. Unless it was. Obviously, there's going to be a case where maybe you want unnerving music, but nothing's happening because you're prepping the player for the next thing. But I really think about music composition as more music design. Like, how do we make sure that the design of this is going to work for the player? Elden Ring's a great example because I don't know about the both of you, and I'm not only bringing this up because we're the Soul Squad, but Elden Ring is a great example because when I picked it up, I remember I took some time off and I played it for a pretty extended period of time in like big chunks. And because the music was very ambient and in the background, I didn't get a lot of ear fatigue. And I felt like I could be in Limgrave for hours and hours on end. But then you get this beautiful contrast when you go into a boss battle where it's like grand and majestic and, you know, incredible music that tells a story of who that character is. And I think that's just really good music design, because let's imagine, you know, you're roaming around Limgrave and Melania's music is playing, or like Margit's music is playing, or like final boss music is playing. Your ears would get fatigued and you'd also be like, there's no need for this. So music is very, or at least how I have enjoyed working with teams is it's very feedback driven of like, and it depends on the team, but I like iterating. So like I'll throw an idea, I'll be like, what do we think of like something in this direction? And then we'll kind of dissect it. But I think another misconception is that, especially if you're working in indie and even AA as a composer, you're going to be responsible for the audio engineering as well. Almost all of the time. So you're going to be writing the music, you're going to be producing the music, but you're also going to be mixing and mastering. So mixing meaning, like you've got, let's say, a song with like 30 different instruments, 40, 50 different instruments. As the composer, if you're working indie or even AA, you're going to be responsible for making sure it all sounds good together. Where are things panned? What's the volume of things? Audio engineering is a lot more than that, but just to kind of give people a high level. And then after you've mixed, also mastering. So making sure that it's loud enough, making sure that you're listening on multiple devices. Does it sound good on over-ear headphones? Does it sound good on in-ear headphones? Does it sound good on a laptop speaker? Does it sound good on a TV, etc.? And I think that's the stuff that people don't generally see. I think I would assume that the perception is, oh, you just sit down and you write music, and that's great. And it's so much more than that.
With regards to the feedback side of things, I think from a journalist point of view, as much as I love writing, I wouldn't be half the writer that I hope to be, or I, would be if it wasn't for like the editors that I've worked with in the past. They were, in my previous job, they were so fantastic, and it's great to there's feedback. I love just getting feedback. I think it's a great way to build yourself up as a writer, to work, to decide what's working, what isn't working, how you approach even different readerships. I think that having an adaptable voice to be able to suit the audience that you're writing for is so essential in the industry. But yeah, getting feedback's wonderful, and having, like you say, like a supportive project lead or a supportive editor is a wonderful thing, for sure.
And that doesn't mean that we don't approach our work with a point of view. Like, I'll always go into a meeting with a point of view and be like, here's why I did this. But if that doesn't translate for whatever reason, I want to know. Like, I think feedback is so important. I think we get the best results if we get diverse feedback.
Absolutely.
I was actually thinking about like the audio engineering thing is so specific, I feel, to games, because I feel like I don't know another industry where it is like that specifically. But I think when I have like my producer hat on and I'm specifically interacting with like music, for example, I think the difference is whether it's an artist or a musician or something like that, I feel like their job is to make sure that it is good from a artistic creative level. And like that's where I like invite pushback. Like if I give feedback, it's usually in the sense of cohesiveness and like being serviceable. So like I remember a specific time where I was like, could we get this track and could we like have a like 30 seconds here where like it goes into like halftime drums and then goes into something else or something like that, right? But the thing I was thinking about was like, okay, this is a boss track or something, and if like the main feedback I had was like, okay, these sections are too like long and it needs more like dynamics because it will feel better if like it'll be random sometimes because it'll just sync up, but it will be more likely for the boss to do something cool like an attack and then the music to change into something a little different. And if it's like a minute, it's like a little bit too long. That's not like a moment. But if it's like 30 seconds, and that's like really strange. It's really strange feedback because if you're composing something, you won't necessarily have things changing like every 30 seconds, 10 seconds or something like that. But it's like the type of things I was asking for. And it's like, I think a lot of time when you're thinking of it from not the musician side or like the artistic side, it's really important to contextualize like, hey, this feedback isn't like the thing you're doing is bad. It's like, here's what I want and here's why this will be really cool. And it will feel really cool, even if it might sound a little worse. But I'm hoping that this is like a challenge. If you can get this to sound good and do this, it will be like even better. And I always try to like get GIFs because it's like, or like videos of like, okay, here's what like you've submitted it and like here it is working in game so people can see like, oh, here's the effect of like the difference. Otherwise I think it's really easy. I feel like I'm sure you've experienced Marina. It's like you make something and then you just put it into the ether and then you work on the next thing and you don't.
Yeah, definitely.
You have no idea what
yes and no. Like when I finish something and it's like approved, right? Like we've approved the composition, we've approved the mix, we've approved the master, it's done. I do try to like, that is over there now. I will not be touching it because unless there's like additional feedback, I may need to go back for sure. But Sherveen, you hit a really good point about cohesion, right? Like if there are a million different ways to write a boss theme, but the combat design needs to have cohesion with the music. And I think that's what you're getting at, right? So like if a composer goes in and writes a battle theme that is more suited to combat design that maybe transitions a little bit slower than what you're describing, then sure, it makes sense for sections to be longer. But if there's a lot of different transitions and opportunities for the boss to do something cool, then yeah, maybe we do want the music to transition in a chaotic way to also bring that potentially chaotic or different energy to the fight. And so that's why I think feedback is so valuable, because I may not have purview into that. I may only have, let's say, concept art to work off of and a conversation. But as we're working on this together and as changes are made in the combat design, the music has to reflect that. And so, and that also kind of opens up the conversation of when should a composer be brought in, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, feedback, big fan of feedback.
Love it.
Love it. yeah, I don't know. I could talk about this forever. What's your favorite thing about what you do, or one of your favorites? Sorry, that's such an absolute question. Sorry, I'm like stressing everyone out. What is the thing you enjoy about your work?
My absolute favorite thing, in terms of like the actual experience of it, is noodling on things. I don't know. I remember it was so funny. There's Mythic Quest, the TV show. There was like a specific episode where one of the characters like, why don't we just noodle on it a little more? And I was like, oh, that's like so what I also do. And it's such a oh, this is you're being like bad. You're being a designer and you're being bad because you're like, let's just noodle it a little more. But it's so fun. It's so fun to just go in and be like, I'm just gonna tweak this and do this, and like I'm gonna add a thing. You know what? Why don't we add a little VFX here? And like you're not setting out with like a specific plan. You're just like, that area needs work. And it's like I feel like the way to describe it is like, you are going into like your room and you're like, I'm just gonna like redecorate this corner, and you're just going and like figuring out, okay, let me put this here, let me put this here. And it could be anything. It could be like a like sound effect, it could be a VFX, it could be like a larger thing, like a level. But that's incredibly fun because you'll go and like spend time and just put little things in place. And you could spend like hours doing that, and then like in the end you can be like, look at the difference, and then no one cares. No, but it's always like, this took me 8 hours. It's like the Parks and Rec thing where it's like the stop motion where it's like, I spent 3 weeks on this, and they're like, where's the rest of it?
Oh no.
Like, could a depressed person make this? It's like that, but it is incredibly fun. It's incredibly fun to do, and I get a lot of like joy out of it, and I think a lot of people, like, it's important to get joy out of those things, independent of whether people go, I can see the improvement. But I think the way I think of it is people feel it subconsciously. Like, it feels better, even if they're not like pointing it out.
Yeah. Jack, what about you? I have a music analogy for later, but
I think for me, the best part of it for me is just kind of being able to, with the games that you're playing, kind of being able to have the time to analyze it. And I mean, we touched on it before, but being able to judge what we want to write about and having that kind of freedom to do so, really, beyond just writing guides and seeing what could be good for other people. I think being able to, for me, as like a English graduate and majoring in like things like film and screenwriting and stuff, I think being able to look into something like a narrative, or even one that's as kind of not all over the place, but one that's kind of very under the radar, as say Elden Rings, for example, being able to analyze and come up with articles and ideas, and just going completely out there, but that somebody is going to want to read it, even if it's just you, even if it just ends up being something that you're passionate about or that I find interesting. I think being able to just have that creative freedom is the best part of the job. There's certain games, like there's an indie game that came out, it'll be 2 years ago now, called Mediterranean Inferno. It's like a queer horror visual novel, and it's so good. I've been recommending it to everybody, but being able to kind of take the themes that have been presented there and reading other people's kind of work on it has been such a joy, because it's a relatively smaller game to some of the other games that will kind of generate traffic, or for lack of a better term, that people that will be on people's radars. I think that seeing games like that and seeing the readership for it and being inspired to write about it yourself is such a great feeling. I just like writing. I like it all. That's the thing. I'm trying to think of like a specific thing, and I'm like, I just love it all. I think that in the last year, the games journalism has been in a bit of a precarious position, owing to one thing or another. And I think seeing people's individuality kind of shine through and be able to kind of pierce the algorithms and still be able to make an impact is fantastic.
And actually, Jack, I was like what you were talking about. It reminded me like a more maybe external favorite part of the job is the fact that like when you're making games, you will be like, you'll have a thought of like, oh, what if we did this or what if we did? And because you work with other people, you will just have someone like drop like a work of art like into your inbox or something, and it's like, oh yeah, that thing that you were thinking, I drew that character, and you're like, oh, it's like a real thing. And it includes things like guides and articles and things. It's just the idea that like you make something and then someone else has put in a ton of work on top of the stuff that you've done and made something like that like is its own thing is such a like, I don't know how to, it's very magical. And it is really like just being like, what if I made an OC and then someone's just like, here's a character, here's a soundtrack for them, here's the thing, and all these things come together. And you just get to like experience them all kind of slowly coming to fruition.
Yeah, I do almost. Oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say I do almost see it as there is like that perpetual kind of student in me where you're analyzing a book or a film to write for your essay, sort of thing. I always loved being able to do that because it gives you the opportunity to just dive in and completely immerse yourself in one text or one film. And I think video games are as big a part of that as anything, really.
Yeah, 100%. I was going to say, I think our common denominator here is creating something out of nothing, where it's like, oh, we were making a game, we're creating that out of nothing. Oh, we're writing guides, we're creating that out of nothing. And I think I mentioned this before we hit record, but Jack, I need to check out your guide for the Saint Trina build in Elden Ring next. And I didn't, as you were talking about, I didn't actually realize how often I go and look at a guide for like very, where sometimes I'm like, oh, this is maybe too specific. I don't know if anyone's written anything about it. And then I'm constantly surprised at the amount of articles that I can find about a particular thing that are so thoughtfully made and so thoughtfully written. But I'll echo the sentiment that creating something out of nothing is like the best feeling ever. Finding flow, like if you have an initial demo approved, let's say by whomever is giving the final thumbs up on music for a game, it's the best feeling ever when like the initial demo's approved and you're like, oh, I know how I'm going to orchestrate this. Or like, if it's more electronic, oh, I know what other synthesizers I want to add to this, and like getting into that flow state and again, creating something out of nothing that other people will hopefully enjoy or at least have an opinion on. Music is a weird one because it's very visceral. Like people either really enjoy it or really don't. And I think most of us struggle to put into words why we enjoy something musically, unless we really, really think about it. But yeah, I echo the sentiment of just making stuff is really awesome.
It is.
We're over time, but I wanted to open it up. I sent over a bunch of like potential questions that we could have gone over. Is there anything? I see one of you in the doc. I don't know who it is, so I don't want to call you out. But is there anything that I didn't ask where you were like, oh, I really wanted to talk about this?
I mean, I'm just happy chatting. So there's nothing that I was like, I was like, oh, I have to speak about this. Otherwise my day's ruined.
Look, if I didn't talk about Nier Automata, my day would have been ruined. So,
I feel like a lot of these are just other types of games. I mean, we could talk about trends, but I feel like trends will be like...
Trends is like a 2-hour conversation. You're welcome to come back on and we can talk about trends. I'm just being mindful of time because I have a meeting after this.
We should
Not now, but
favorite games of all
I
time.
was thinking that favorite
It's
games.
different from inspiring games, which is why I was thinking.
Who would like to start?
I'll
You
go.
both know mine. Like,
yes, you're in the Automata. Everyone's like, I feel like if they could make it again somehow, you could play like not even a real like if you could just experience it again. Like
if I could experience Nier Automata again for the first time,
yeah,
I would. Maybe that's the question. What game would you want to experience again for the first time? Because I remember the amount of emotion that was flowing through me as I played Nier Automata, and it was so special.
for the first time, see that's slightly different. I'm not sure because I think my favorite game, which is very clear, is Fable: The Lost Chapters. Is my favorite.
Yeah.
And it's like, which is so weird because it's not the way things I think about the most when I'm designing things or things like that. But it is the game that I can play and like I could play it every year and it's fine. Like it's very cozy. It's got the like classic British humor and it's like just like the perfect size too. But like like play again for the first time because I don't know if that's what I would pick because maybe I wouldn't like it as much if I played it now with no memory.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, we're thinking too deep into this. I think all of us.
I think
because that's a good point.
Outer Wilds, maybe.
Ooh, that's a really good one.
I've not played it, but I only ever hear good things. Yeah.
Can I tell you? So Outer Wilds is actually specific because it's a bunch of folks at USC Games. So when I was a freshman, my first year, like their team was like seniors, and they were like doing the prototype of that game, which I played. And then like 5 years later, it's like, oh wow, it's got really big. It's like
that's
really,
amazing.
really
so good.
Yeah. So I definitely have like a special place. But that's what I will say about Outer Wilds. 2 things: great game, really fun. Like it's a thing I would like experience again, not knowing any of this stuff because there's just a lot of really fun moments in that game. But also it has if like space travel actually like recreational space travel, casual space travel ever existed, I would want it to work like it does in Outer Wilds. I think it has like the way I would want actual spaceships to work if I was ever to pilot. Because it's fair. Like I was like, I can pilot this. Like I'm like doing like complex like orbital things and like matching trajectories. And like I can do it. And I could turn off autopilot and go like that. It's the coolest thing ever. And I don't know how they manage that, but
it's so good. We have support for Outer Wilds in chat. Oh, it's so good. So good.
I need to get on it. I need to do it.
So good. Jack, what about you?
I think for me, so I think my favorite game is different from what I would want to play. Like feel again, because my favorite game is a DS game called Hotel Dusk. If anyone's heard of that, it's called Hotel Dusk Room 215. It's like a detective novel. So you turn the DS on its side, so you're playing it like a detective novel. But
that's cool.
It's so
cool.
Yeah, it looks really cool.
All the characters are kind of like rotoscoped, and they've got this kind of like noir kind of animation style. It's so good, and it had a sequel as well that I think only came out in Japan and Europe as well. So I don't know if you can like emulate it, but it's well worth playing. But as much as I love it, I think a game that I'd really love to play again and feel that feeling again is Animal Crossing New Horizons. Because so I think about like lockdown a lot, and I think about how our gaming habits were during lockdown, and I was tempted to say Death Stranding, but I actually prefer that more in the context since lockdown, because of kind of like the themes of what was going on at the time. But that feeling, because our first lockdown in the UK, I think, happened either the day of or the day after New Horizons came out. So we had nothing but time. At that point, we had nothing but time, and it was a great way for us to. It's a very slow burner, and I've tried replaying it since because when I moved from my regular Switch to the Switch OLED, I lost my island. I was gutted.
No.
I lost everything because I didn't back it up, and yeah, I was just naive and completely lost it all. So
no.
I've tried playing it since, and I find it so difficult now because I just seen the crying emote in the chat.
It's because of the investment. It's hard to do it again. Oh,
and that feeling when we were just going into lockdown and we were all separated from our friends, and it was a great way for me and my friends used to go onto each other's island and swap items, help decorate it, and I think that if I could feel that again, it'd be fantastic because I've tried it again since, and it just doesn't hit the same. But in a lot of ways as well, losing that island, I think I got I think I clocked in 300 hours in the end, something like that, something ridiculous. And in a lot of ways, losing that island was almost cathartic, because it was lockdown was over. I didn't I didn't mourn it as much as I thought I would, but I don't think I'd be able to recapture that now. So if I could get that feeling back, that'd be incredible. I think I'd lose my mind. And similarly, I've just watched a film. It's on Mubi at the moment called Grand Theft Hamlet.
Haven't heard of it.
I don't know if you've heard of it. So it's these actors. When we went into lockdown, the art scene was kind of hit pretty hard. And these two actors decided to stage a production of Hamlet in GTA. And they've made because it was during lockdown, so they made a whole documentary on it. And that, again, you can see the way that gaming kind of brought together different people to do different things, whether it was GTA, whether it was Animal Crossing, playing Among Us, concerts in Minecraft, things like that. Or in Fortnite as well, just having that feeling. Oh, if I could get that Animal Crossing feeling again, I'd be giddy. I'd love it.
I know what you're talking about. That was FF14 for me, for sure. I felt connected because I started playing FF14 around that time.
Oh, okay.
Which I would love to replay. There's so many games that I would love to replay just to experience the story. I'd love to replay Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight really surprised me when I first. I know, Sherveen, you love Hollow Knight as much as
replay Hollow Knight.
I love Hollow Knight. I'm so excited for Silksong. I would really love to replay Hollow Knight because the thing about a Metroidvania is that's very appealing to me is the exploration and being like, "Oh, is there a secret behind this thing?" And once you know the secrets, it's a very different experience than when you don't. Yeah, I don't know. There's so many games I would love to.
But it's really interesting to me that it's I can really separate it out, the games I would not want to replay, even though I love them. Because for example, I would not want to re-experience Dark Souls for the first time because I earned it. That's fair. That. I've finished it. I now get to run through and be good at it. That's I would never give that.
That's fair. Look, no one wants to go back to Blighttown. I get it.
No.
I don't, and I have to.
I never want to not know where the things in Blighttown.
Yes, Blighttown. No.
No Blighttown.
Every single ambush that I'm that's there, that is a blessing, and I cherish it, and I would never want to forget it.
That's reasonable. That's reasonable. Chat's really funny. Shall we wrap up the more formal segment and open up chat?
Let's do it.
All right, perfect. For anyone watching the VOD, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Our socials will be in the description if you'd like to follow us. And if you have any feedback, feel free to let us know. And I'm going to go ahead and open Open up chat. How do I do this? But for now, to everyone watching the VOD, bye. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, let's open this up. Here we go. All right, everyone is free. Finally
Whoa,
free.
there it
Freedom.
is.
Welcome.